So my name is Gail Medill, and I live in Searcy, Arkansas. This is actually for a teammate of mine. So I'm a pelvic health physical therapist, and so I attract a lot of the untalked about topics with a lot of my people. And so I had someone reach out to me about endometriosis, and she said, I have been bleeding every other week for the last 4 years. And she said, do you think this could help me? She's 22 years old. And I said, I feel confident that this will do something. It's just a matter of time. So she started the patches. She's been on the patches 4 weeks. She has not bled once since she started on the patches.
I'm Teresa Walker, and I've been on. I live in Norman, Oklahoma. I have been on the patches since December 31st, but this is not about me. This is about my mom. So I finally got my dad to agree to get the patches. My mom got diagnosed with dementia in December, early December. She's been on the patches for a little over a week now, and she has totally come. She's just woke up. It is amazing. Like, definitely a godsend. She's not fumbling her words. She can carry on a conversation, and she says she just feels good.
I'm from Berthoud, Colorado, and my mom, well, we started back in November and December. My husband started before me, and overnight he was a one patch wonder, and his acid reflux went away. And so he's a smoker, so sometimes, yeah, it still comes back a bit, but it's way better than it was before. And then I've had some great mobility successes, but then my mom is 89 years old, and she doesn't need to have her knees injected anymore with cortisone. She's off of and she's been doing that for many years, the injections. And then she's not taking Tylenol as much. So every now and then she'll take one, but it used to be twice a day. She was born with one kidney, so always worry about supplements going through the system. So, and she got off of glucosamine and chondroitin with the patches. She broke her arm many years ago, probably a good 15 or 20 years ago, and had very little movement in her arm. She could raise up just like a little bit, maybe to shoulder height, but she sat down at the table the other day and she said, look, and was able to rotate her shoulder. Mom, you'll be 89 in April?
Yes.
She'll be 89 in April.
My daughter, Crosslyn, was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis at 7 days old, and she's 16 years old now. But last summer, in the end of May, she got the worst diagnosis of her entire journey. We had been through lots of hills and valleys, but this time it was a bacteria in her lungs that her body began to rapidly decline. The first night she slept through the night, and that was the first in her lifetime, because her body always would wake her up coughing as a part of cystic fibrosis. And so that's all that we knew for the first 15 days, is just that our daughter slept, and that was already a celebration, and we were going to keep the patch just because of that. But we went to the clinic, and she blew in the pulmonary function tests, and suddenly her lungs showed 100% for the first time in her entire lifetime. So she went from her very deepest valley. This patch was given to us, and then she went to her highest mountaintop in a matter of 15 days. And I think that that's a great education for everyone to know, that each body is going to show different results, and not always on the surface. Crosslyn did show surface only with regards to sleep, but what was going on the cellular level that was life-saving was what we couldn't see. So that's why time and patience should always be given for yourself, and then as you guide others. We went on about a month later, we finally told the doctor, and he was surprised and thought it was funny, until he put the stethoscope on her lungs and suddenly heard that there was no more crackling in her lungs. For 4.5 years, she had battled multiple different bacteria, and that had created scar tissue that created her new baseline. And with that, there was constant crackling. And so I said, well, I guess that's what stem cell regeneration will get you, is no more scar tissue and no more crackling. And then about a month later, she was able to tell him that she had begun running for the first time in her life. Though she is the cowgirl and runs barrels and ropes on top of a horse, and does lots of exercise that way, she had never actually run and worked out because of her junior rheumatoid arthritis. That had obviously been reversed at that moment. She was able to celebrate with her doctor that now she could do that. And then fast forward a little bit more, we were able to, for the first time in her lifetime, in our family's life, travel. And we got to go, we live in Oklahoma, and we got to travel to Arizona and on to the National Finals Rodeo and spread the blessings of this patch with everybody. Crossland was able to run barrels and compete in Arizona before we made it to Las Vegas. And up until that point, she has always had to stay in our little bubble of Oklahoma and North Texas. And even when she would come home from a trip to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, she would be in bed for days and sometimes weeks, just with how hard it was on her body to travel. So we came home from 2 weeks gone to Arizona and Las Vegas, the germ pot of the world, totally healthy and totally refreshed. She never skipped a beat, just kept spurring on. And we are at 8 months now. So it's been humbling as her parents to watch what God's plan was for her life and for our lives. Because this patch also applies to horses, which is her greatest passion beyond Jesus. That has been her wheelhouse. She leaves me to help people heal as humans, and then God is mightily using her in the lives of others, because she knows the front end from the back end of a horse. And all of the acupressure points, and is able, just a week ago, she saved 3 different colicking horses with her knowledge, and helping other, not our own horses, helping other people with their horses. And so that has been so fun to watch her operate in her gifting, while her body is now operating at a whole new level. And this has blessed our family in layers.
My name is Phil Roop, and I am from Cape Girardeau, Missouri. I pastor Bethel Assembly here. And so just 2 things. First of all, I very busy like everybody is, but I also oversee about 60 churches, so that keeps me real busy. But for me, I was diagnosed in 1999 with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, stage 4, level 4, given really possibly only 2 months to live. Now, through a lot of prayer, and God changed that, and I ended up having a diagnosis which is incurable but controllable, which means that the only way that they could, when there would be a flare-up of lymph nodes and bone marrow consumption of cancer, would be by treatment. So cancer chemo treatment, basically 3 different long-term times. 1 time for a year, and 2 times for about 6 months. We got the patches and had them for 8. I had it for 8 days. I'm 60. I'll be 67 soon, and I have every 6 months I have a CAT scan, blood work, CAT scan, and see my oncologist, because this has been a pattern now for almost 26 years. And we went in and had the blood work, CAT scan, went in, and he said, everything looks pretty normal. He said, the only thing that's interesting, he said, is that your blood work is greater than I've ever seen it. In about the 6 years I've been seeing this particular oncologist, he said, I don't understand what it is. And we were sitting there trying to figure it out. And we figured out the only thing that we could attribute that to was the patches. And of course, that makes sense because it goes to the most needed place of your body. So let me just say that. So that was in June. In December, I went back again to see and to have the CAT scan, blood work. Went in, he said, everything still looks pretty good. We don't need to worry about any treatment. He said, but again, your blood work is even better than it was in June. And let me just say this, for the 26 years I've battled with non-Hodgkin's, but blood work has always been, low blood count's always been the problem, always. And so it was greater again in December. while we were talking about it, he said, what's interesting, because he and I were talking about the patch and you know, I'm always asking him, you know, when you going to tell me that I'm totally healed? And he said, when, you know, everything indicates that you are. He said, you're not there yet. And of course he really doesn't believe that I'm going to be healed because that's not the diagnosis. So, anyway, while we're talking about that, and one thing that he and I are looking at is the fact that I've had relief from chemotherapy. I've had the issues of neuropathy and from an additive to chemotherapy called Rituxan. And so I got peripheral neuropathy, but I've had the great pleasure of not waking up every morning at 2 o'clock in the morning with my feet bothering me for multiple months. And so he's saying, I want to trace that because there's no cure for neuropathy. But while he's talking to me, he said, here's what's interesting. I have another patient, and Denise said, I don't know who this is. She has breast cancer. She is in chemotherapy right now. And he said, I was surprised because her blood work was so good. And I found out that she's using a patch. I don't even know who she is, but she's using the same patch. So he said, there's something to this. I don't know what it is.
Started the patches in the end of January, 2.5 weeks in. I have bad knees, had meniscus that were torn that were surgically repaired. In 2011, 2015, I had a kid hit me 50-mile-an-hour head on, put my driver's wheel under my feet, put both knees into the dash again. A week and a half, 2 weeks ago when we had our ice storm, I was out in my carport crawling around repairing a bush hog I bought. Spent 2 days out there in the cold on my knees. Normally I'd have to grab a hold of something to pull myself up off the ground. That night my knees would throb, etc. I got ready for bed that night after doing that for 2 days straight. No pain, no throbbing. I looked at my wife and said, you know, my knees don't hurt. She says, what do you mean? I said, normally I am in aching agony. I stay up all night long because my knees ache. I'm not having any pain. And she says, I noticed you're not limping after all that. Second story, we had a young man come to our store the other day who had surgery on his elbow, his knees. I mean, he was in a wreck or something. Quite get the details. He had recently had the pins removed from his left elbow, had like 18 screws and plates put in there, and they pulled them back out because he didn't need them anymore. And he had this nasty purple bolt pattern on his arm and incision lines. It was fairly fresh. And I asked him, he's hurting pretty good from that, aren't you? He says, yes. I said, I've got something for that. I put that where he said the pain was the most intense. Found a spot that felt good, took it off. He says, yeah, I came back. I said, did it relieve it? He says, no, but it felt better. So I went around a little further. And as I'm doing this, you could watch that muscle on his elbow literally relax. He says, wow, I can feel my muscle contracting and relaxing as it's getting the, and it got to the point where there was no pain. He was so impressed. And a 20-some-year-old kid who's works hard. He drives an 18-wheeler hauling crushed rock and then does timber work. So he's not slowing down or stopping, but he's in immense amounts of pain from whatever accident he's involved in. It was amazing to see, just watch the physical muscle change. Then my wife's failure came in with locked shoulders here a couple of weeks ago. Couldn't raise his arm up. Couldn't hardly squeeze the diamond pliers to cut the hooves. Put one on his left shoulder. 2 minutes. He's bringing his elbow up, literally up over his head. He couldn't raise it flush with his shoulder. I said, how's the right shoulder? He says, just as bad. Did the same thing. He went, I mean, he's, wow, holy moly, what is this? You know?
Clarence Davis down here in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Hey, I am doing really, really well right now. I'm feeling good. I'm got more energy right now. Get patches. We've only been at it now for about a month and a half, and my wife and I, we're doing really, really good. We're signing up quite a few people. In fact, I just want to tell you a little story. One of our securities at our church, he called me over and said, Clarence, look here. If that patch will do something for my mom, she's 82 years old. She has arthritis in her knees. If it'll do something for my mom, I'm signing up. I said, okay, let's go. Put that patch on that lady, 82 years old. She said, so stretched the leg out. She took the leg back. She stood up. He said, Mom, get your walker. She said, I don't want that walker. She walked across the room. She walked back across the room. She said, sign the paper, boy. We appreciate God for showing us these patches.